Okay, so memory. As we know, the entire plot of The Memory Police stems from the importance of memory and its disappearances. So, Ogawa argues that memory is essential in the human experience, acting as a conduct for meaningful relationships to form and individuals to gain a sense of purpose. Okay? And the narrator's final disappearance indicates that memories are a fundamental component to our sense of self. So I think Ogawa kind of explores this in a deeper meaning. It's the main kind of theme of the book. Everything kind of relates back to memory in this sense. Similarly with authoritarian regimes. But she explores the other themes that I will go through, like authority and surveillance and relationships, through memory, if that makes sense. So it is that overarching kind of theme as well. Okay. All right. So these are some quotes, and I've included some techniques as well for some of them, and I'll explain them as well. But the narrator. The little brown creature flew in a wide circle and then vanished north. I couldn't recall the names of the species, and I found myself wishing I'd paid more attention when I'd been with my father at the observatory. So, would you memorize that entire quote and chuck it in an essay? No. But you would pick and choose little words, and you can add brackets to change them, or ellipses as well, to edit and modify your quotes to fit better. So do not memorize the 20-something words that are in there, okay? But a technique that kind of corresponds with this quote is lexical choice. So lexical choice is the choice of lexis, or the choice of words and dialogue made by the author. So by choosing to use the words little brown creature, Ogawa kind of uses those words to show the impact of the disappearances, and how even though the narrator had the connection with her father, she can't even recall the name or the term birds anymore. Okay? So, the old man, this is a quote from him. When I was a child, the whole place seemed, how can I put this, a lot fuller, a lot more real. But as things got thinner, more full of holes, our hearts got thinner too, diluted somehow. So I guess that also shows the impact of disappearances and the impact of memory loss as well. Okay, so we can see how that kind of relates to the overarching idea. So, quote from R, don't we have all the memories preserved here in this room? The emerald, the map, the photograph, the harmonica, the novel, everything. This is the very bottom of the mind's swamp, the place where memories come to rest. So I guess that's kind of an insight into the preservation of memory and the objects that can do that. There is some listing going on there. You could pick up on that. But there are probably some other techniques that you could pick up on that would have more of an effect than listing. Okay, perfect. So, last quote from the narrator. Your heart and mine are being pulled apart to such different, distant places. Yours is overflowing with warmth and life and sounds and smells, but mine is growing cold and hard at a terrifying pace. At some point, it will break into 1,000 pieces, shards of ice that will dissolve. So, a technique used in this one is polysyndeton, which sounds a bit scary, but I promise it's not. So, polysyndeton is the repetition of a conjunction in a sentence. So, a conjunction is a word that joins a sentence together, like the word and. And here we can see yours is overflowing with warmth and life and sounds and smells, but mine is going cold and hard at a terrifying pace. So the repetition of the word and there, I guess places emphasis on, we can see the connotations surrounding the words, warmth, life, sound, smells, overflowing sounds nice, compared to cold and hard. There's that contrast there. So the polysyndeton kind of emphasizes that as well. Okay, amazing. So next theme, authority and surveillance. Okay. Ogawa suggests that authoritarian regimes are so detrimental to society that they inherently cause their own undoing. So I guess that's some authorial intent for you guys as well. In relation to that, The narrator notes that the memory police are also affected by the disappearances. They just learn about them before the rest of the island. So there's that as well. So if left legs are disappearing, then the memory police will know that they're going to disappear, unlike the rest of them. But they still disappear for the memory police. So, as I was saying before, this suggests that the memory police are comprised of regular citizens, and so the memory police also disappear with the later disappearances, inferring that kind of those similarities there as well. Okay, cool. So, quotes for authority and surveillance. Here's one from the narrator. Actually, all these are from the narrator. There were 5 of them, dressed in dark green uniforms with heavy belts and black boots. The men were nearly identical, so that I guess that kind of relates to their unity and that kind of image of them as well. The island is run by men who are determined to see things disappear. From their point of view, anything that fails to vanish when they say it should is inconceivable. So they force it to disappear with their own hands. So there you go. This is, I guess, the brutality of the memory police. Again, please do not memorize this whole quote and use this whole chunk in an essay. Pick apart bits that you like and that you can use for the point that you're trying to prove. Yeah, much better to use your word count with analysis rather than 20-word quotes. Okay, perfect. So, the narrator, again. I felt, once again, the anxiety that had taken root in our hearts a long time ago. So I guess that's the fear that's instilled in the community as well. It's a good quote to note that. Next one, as I wander through my sparse forest of memories, photographs have been my most reliable compass, but it's time to move on. It's terrible to lose a compass, but I have no strength to resist the disappearances. So I guess that's that insight into the overwhelming strength of the memory police and the regime that the island is under as well. Okay, but quite apart from the small satisfactions we enjoyed, the world outside was deteriorating day by day. So I guess that's the destruction that Ogawa suggests, that it's their own undoing. You know, everything disappears. What are you gonna control if everything's gone, essentially? And it's their own undoing. So I guess that's a really good quote to support that notion as well. Okay. Okay, relationships, really important theme because it contrasts the authoritarian one. So while she criticizes this, she notes that friendships are a real necessity during periods of hardship. Through these relationships, Ogawa explores the benefit of both platonic and romantic relationships and explains how, to the narrator, R and the old man were fundamental to her continued survival and ability to live under the authoritarian regime and also fight back against the regime that she's under. Obviously, it was quite overwhelming for her when books disappeared, but R encouraged her to keep going, and she did, and she finished her manuscript. So I guess that's an example of how they can be so important, especially when people are going through adversities as well, and especially under a strict dictatorship regime as well. Okay, perfect. So some quotes for relationships. The little brown creature flew in a wide circle and then vanished north. I couldn't recall the name of the species, and I found myself wishing I'd paid more attention when I'd been with my father at the observatory. Same one from memory. See how these quotes can kind of overlap with different themes? You can use similar points of evidence to prove different themes. So I put that one in there on purpose so that we can see the connection, you know? You don't have to memorize chunks of evidence. If you can frame an idea around this quote, then you can relate it to both relationships or memory. You know, whatever point you're arguing, you can use it for both. It's quite interchangeable. And you can do that with a lot of quotes as well. Okay. So I took a deep breath and felt a slight pain, as though a spark had found its way into the bottomless pit of my heart. The pages of the book had opened and fluttered through the air, just the way the bird had once spread their wings and flown off into the distances. But this memory too was soon erased by the flames, leaving behind nothing but the burning night. So quite a long one there, but that's showcasing, I guess, the flashback that the narrator has and the relationship with her dad that kind of evoked that, and the sense of pain that she got from that as well. But we did not need to move, content to hold hands and stare at one another for a long time. There seemed to be no other way to reassure ourselves that we had all come safely through the ordeal. And that's, I guess, how a relationship can help people, especially the narrator, in this sense, but how that can help people in or during adversities or through an ordeal. Okay, so storytelling. Ogawa champions the power of storytelling throughout the novel, noting it as a way to connect others and understand ourselves deeper. So this initially is a bond shared between the narrator and her mother, and is a direct connection to memory, something that defies the laws of the memory police. Storytelling can strengthen memory, even, as I said, if it's not 100%, it can definitely strengthen that as well, okay? It seems strange, these are some quotes. It seems strange that you can still create something totally new like this, just from words, on an island where everything else is disappearing. So that's that link to storytelling as well there. If I go on writing stories, will those memories protect me? I guess that's a query that the narrator has asked as well. And R says, a mind that we cannot see has created a story that we can. They may have burned the novels, but your heart did not disappear. So there's that link to storytelling. They can burn the objects, but because of the stories and everything, your heart did not disappear. So there's the importance of storytelling and identity, a very key theme in the memory police. So Ogawa highlights the key connection between memory and identity through the disappearances. When the novel becomes lost, the narrator loses a very significant part of herself, namely her ability to express her distaste in the regime she lives under. So I think it's also important to note that no character's name besides Inui, I think, that maybe there are some others, but I think Inui might be one of the only ones where their name is like explicit, and even then we don't have his first name. But everybody else is the narrator, the old man. They don't have a name, and I think that kind of links back to that authoritarian regime and that lack of identity when living under something that's so controlling like that. Okay. And identity is also examined through the narrator's manuscript. The woman loses her voice and ultimately her sense of self. Okay? Amazing. So, quotes. Each one told the story of something that had been disappeared. Everyone likes that sort of thing. So we can kind of see that there. Maybe there's a place out there where people whose hearts aren't empty can go on living. So, relating to identity, loss of identity. But now it seemed that the smallest tap of my finger on his chest would have sent him collapsing into pieces like a marionette whose strings had been cut. So there's that lack of identity. He's losing himself to the hidden room because he's having to go in hiding. Okay. I pulled back the quilt and made a bizarre discovery. Something was stuck fast to my hip, and no matter how much I pulled or pushed or twisted, it would not come off, just as though it had been welded to me. So there's that kind of identity there as well. My body was now included amongst the objects arranged on the floor. There's that lacking identity. She's fully gone. That's towards the end of the novel where she's left to disappear on the floor of the hidden room. Okay.